Today, on the 10th of August 2020, we have all gathered here for the one-day research development program on online platforms for peer interaction in research, organized by the Guru Nanak Center for Research, GNCR. The convener of this program is the Dean Research, Dr. J. Jayanti, who is the Associate Professor and Head Department of Advanced Zoology and Biotechnology. The organizing secretary of this program, this Research Development Program, RDP, is Dr. J. Vanati, Head Department of BSc Information Technology, Guru Nanak College. Now, on behalf of our principal, who will join us a little later, I heartily welcome our most renowned resource person of today's program, Ms. R. Aparna, the Assistant Professor of Computer Science and Engineering of Ramaya Institute of Technology, Bengaluru. Hearty welcome to you, madam. Thank you very much for having joined us to share your knowledge and expertise on the subject. We are all aware that this interaction, this deliberation is going to awaken us, is going to create a kind of awareness in all of us to do our research in a better way, in a qualitative way. So on behalf of our college, hearty welcome to you, madam. We are very happy in receiving you for this program. Next, it's my pleasure to invite and welcome our respected General Secretary and Correspondent, Mr. Manjit Singh Nair, who has been, as I always I say, who has been a very constant support and who has given us lots of autonomy in doing our work in the best way possible. Hearty welcome to you, sir. Then I just invite, I express my hearty welcome to our convener. Dear convener, I think you are going to see the fruits of your efforts. She has been working harder and hardest for the benefit of the institution. Hearty welcome to you, madam, Dr. J. Jayanti. And then I welcome the organizing secretary, Dr. J. Vanati, who is very much instrumental in making arrangement for this one-day research development program. Hearty welcome to you, madam. She is the head of the Department of BSc IT of Guru Nanak College. I heartily welcome our ever-smiling, cheerful lady with her sweet outlook, our controller of examinations, Dr. Rajeshri, madam. Hearty welcome to you, madam. Your presence makes us, energetic all the time. And I heartily welcome all the deans of various schools of our college, the heads of the departments of both the shifts, the faculty members of all the departments, the research supervisors of all 9 departments of our college, and the research scholars who are all in full numbers today. Hearty welcome to you all, and I welcome other participants who are present in this one-day research development program on online platforms for peer interaction in research. Now we move on to the next part of our agenda for today's program. May I now invite the head department of BSc IT, Dr. J. Vanati, to kindly introduce the resource person of the day. Madam, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to everyone and a warm welcome to all present in this session, respected dignitaries, faculty members, and research scholars. I have a very pleasant duty of introducing our resource person, Mrs. Aparna, for today's session. Mrs. Aparna is currently working as an assistant professor in Computer Science Department at Ramaya Institute of Technology. Our areas of interest include cloud computing, high performance computing, data mining, data structures, and database systems. Today I be computer science from Bangalore University and an MTech from NIT Surat. Regarding her professional accomplishments, she started her career as a lecturer at Nagarjuna College of Engineering and Technology, Bangalore in the year 2002. In 2004, she joined as a teaching assistant at NIT Surat. In 2007, she moved to software industry. She worked in Yahoo software development as senior software engineer for 5 years. Mrs. Aparna resumed back to teaching profession as associate professor at RBA ITM Bangalore. At present, she is in Ramaya Institute of Technology. She has published articles in leading journals and she is also a life member of Computer Science of India. I heartily welcome you, ma'am, for the article session.
Thank you, madam, for your words of introduction about our resource person, Ms. R. Aparna. Now, on all our behalf, I now invite our resource person to kindly take over the proceedings. Madam, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, esteemed participants. Dear friends, hope all of you are staying safe and doing good. Thank you, ma'am, for an elaborate and encouraging introduction to get started. So I shall share my presentation. Please confirm. Ma'am, is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Dear participants, you have to pin on to Aparna R icon so that you can see the slides.
Yeah, so topic of today's discussion is how to make use of online platforms for interacting with research peers across the world in order to make our research effective. So today's talk will revolve around different academic social networks such as ResearchGate, Google Scholar, and Mendeley. So we will basically look at the purpose behind the existence of these platforms and how to get started using them. Okay, so social networking being the basis for today's different platforms that we would discuss next. Let's quickly see what social networking is. So social networking is the use of internet-based social media websites for getting connected with friends, family, colleagues, customers, or clients. So it could be anyone who would wish to who you would wish to get connected with. So social networking is basically to socialize and make your presence online so that peers or friends across the world could stay connected with you and get your updates. So social networking basically was to socialize, and it might also have business purposes, or it could be both. So you could have friends who are business colleagues and you would want to socialize and have business settings there. So websites like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, to name a few, are the popular social networking websites that people would use for social networking. Now, this particular set of websites that are called social networking websites, they involve the usage of dedicated websites and applications, because the kind of functionality that you would expect from these websites are different. So you would want to search for connections, and you would want to make connections with them, and you would want to stay in touch with them to be updated with their updates and give your updates, right? So this involves finding and interacting with users with similar interests. So the kind of logic that has to be used for these websites are different, and hence you have a separate set of websites that are called social networking websites. So if you look at Facebook, for an example, you would want to use Facebook to help you connect with family, old friends, or friends of the present, and stay in touch with them by sharing photos and other memories, planning events, etc. So mainly to socialize with your friends, relatives, and to expand the network, you would use Facebook kind of a platform. Here, distance should not be a concern at all. You can virtually get connected with your connections online anytime and from anywhere, right? So similar intentions arose when researchers wanted to collaborate with a friend or a colleague on the other side of the world. So this led to innovations like ResearchGate, academia.edu, etc. So in order to collaborate and interact with researchers of similar interest, these sites listed here were designed and developed and are popularly grouped as social networking sites for academia. So to name a few, like I told you, ResearchGate, academia.edu, Twitter, LinkedIn are all social networking websites exclusively meant for academic purposes. Now we would want to justify why such an online presence is necessary for a researcher. On the other hand, or on the contrary, you would expect a researcher to be sitting in a dark room at the end of it and trying to invent something that's not existing, right? To oppose that, I have listed a few points why social network is important. So researchers want to share their information widely. So in that regard, when you would want to share your research widely and be able to track what are the contributions in research in our interested domains, so as to keep ourselves updated with the latest contributions of our domain, you would require an online presence. And then by letting know the other peers what we are trying to solve, there is a high probability of creating good collaborations with them and be able to work on similar projects. Again, this would expand our research base. So we also can stay up to date on our colleagues' publications. So we being academicians, we know how tough it is to meet them, though we all are in the same campus. So you could get online and see what publications your colleagues have made and get information about it. So staying active in such social forums actually create a professional online presence and hence develop reputation in our domain. So now that we appreciate the importance of online presence in academia, we will look at how ResearchGate helps us in this regard. So ResearchGate is an academic social network. It's a major player in the scholarly social network space. So this ResearchGate gives you an opportunity to have greater reach with other researchers. So when you get started, you will actually create your profile that summarizes your research. Now, when your profile is created, it helps ResearchGate in a lot of ways that we will see next, so that your online presence is almost automatic. So what you would do as part of creating a profile would also be to upload your publications and presentations so that others can find them and they could encounter your work, review them, and provide you a healthy feedback. So we would also want to find and follow other researchers of our domain. ResearchGate is the place. You can receive automatic updations on their new publications as well. Now you can go about finding and reading other publications as well. Then you can see platform specific metrics that indicate your readership and reach out that you have on those websites. Okay. So it all started when two researchers discovered that collaborating with a friend or a colleague on the other side of the world is not an easy task. So that's when Dr. Ijad and Soren, along with the computer scientist Horst, founded ResearchGate in 2008. And today we have around 17 million members, active members in ResearchGate community, who are collaborating very positively and in a healthy way and trying to develop good research output. So more about the features of ResearchGate. So like I told you, you can find other researchers and publications here. So it's a little different how it works on academia.edu. So if you want to ask me why did I choose to explain about ResearchGate and not academia.edu, both are competitors, both are academic social networks. But academia.edu tries to encourage the researchers to share their articles directly with the community, and it covers majorly the publication aspect, whereas ResearchGate, on the other hand, is very interactive. It is easier to navigate in this portal, and it's very easy to collaborate, and the user interface is very simple and intuitive to use. So if you look at several researchers' opinion about academia.edu and ResearchGate, you will quickly find out that ResearchGate is more attractive compared to academia.edu in terms of the features that it provides for peer-to-peer collaboration, and users popularly vote for ResearchGate over academia.edu. So just popularity choice, here I would want to explain ResearchGate, and the features that I explain for ResearchGate might also comply with academia.edu as well. So here, like I told you, you would want to find other researchers and publications. So you can automatically get research. I mean, you can suggest a few of your interests, and then ResearchGate tries to automatically set up connections for you based on your citations, who you have cited, and then it'll ask you who you want to follow, and whatever discipline you have selected for setting up your profile will also be used as a criteria for setting up your network, so that the information that we provide as our profile is very important, and ResearchGate works on those details for setting up your peer-to-peer friend network automatically, and suggest you with a lot of updates about your domains and your areas of interest when you visit ResearchGate portal. Okay? So the key to creating a robust network is upload some papers of yours with citations, so that ResearchGate will text mine those papers, analyze who were your co-authors, and it will also look at your citations to see who you have cited, and then help you connect with them and follow them when you get onto ResearchGate. So searching for other researchers is also allowed. So we will you see how to use the search bar and get in touch with other researchers who are up in ResearchGate, who already have an account in ResearchGate. So it could be a colleague of yours. So you could just type his or her name, and if he is found on ResearchGate, you could just connect with him, follow him, and see what his latest updates are. So like I told you, text mining is the basic algorithm that ResearchGate uses to mine our publications that we upload as part of our profile, and then it will try to build our network automatically and try to give us suggestions dynamically whenever we are on ResearchGate. So our network can also include colleagues from our department and from our institution, and we can view and interact with our network. So I'll just show you in the web portal where this option is. So the network, like I told you, is automatically built with the people whom you have cited, who have cited your work, who are your followers, who you are following, and your top co-authors. So all these would automatically form your network. So you don't have to invite your co-authors or colleagues explicitly when you have listed a few publications in your profile. Then, as an academic social network, ResearchGate also scores and provides you metrics on different key factors. So ResearchGate score and statistics, they offer a lot of information for us to explore. The score is just an indicator of our engagement with the site. So the more publications and the more followers we have, the more questions we ask and answer, all these add up to our score. And that tells us how active we are on ResearchGate. So they also often tell you how publications have been viewed and cited. So what your top publications were, depending on the citations and other factors. And the popularity of your profile can increase using these statistics and score. So to add to it, it provides a percentile. You could see it on the right hand side. I'll show you. That shows you how a score stacks up against other users on the site. The score is not normalized. So you just go by different factors and see how popular you are with respect to your publication citation, or how good you are at answering others' queries, how popular you are in getting messages and updates. So all these will add up to the calculation, and it shows up a percentile. So even in academia.edu, there is this stats and score feature available. So these stats are only for content hosted on ResearchGate. So it can't tell you much about the readership qualities you have, or the citations of your work that are hosted on other platforms like IEEE Explore or wherever. Only if you have them uploaded in ResearchGate, ResearchGate can probably calculate a better score for you. So these statistics are only content based, whatever you have provided to ResearchGate. So ResearchGate statistics are not representative of your full impact. So you may be really good in your domain in a different way. So it may not be projected here. That's only because your profile is not fully up to date. So the UI looks something like this. So you will have to, as a new user, you will have to sign up or register to this portal. That's one-time job. So you could alternatively use these other social networking logins. You could use Facebook, you could use LinkedIn, you could use Google to get started with ResearchGate. I would personally prefer to keep these socializing websites different from our professional network. So I would want my research peers to be contacted in a different way, and I need a different login for that. So I would prefer to set up a new user, or I would prefer to become a valid user in ResearchGate and then get started. So once I log in, I have option to get to my home page. I shall give you a gist of what looks like. And before that, if you have already set up your user account on ResearchGate, and now that you have to log in case you have forgotten your password, there again is an option that you can click on, which allows the ResearchGate to send a reset link to the registered email address of yours, and you could go click on that reset link and create a new password. So another hint that ResearchGate provides to the new users is researchers is it's better to use their institutional email address as their ResearchGate login, because like I told you, to build your network automatically, it will make use of your department details and your institution details. So if your institutional email domain is known with the help of your email that you register, then it's easy for ResearchGate to search for your fellow colleagues of your department or your institution. So it's good for you to get started with your institutional email address. So once you log in with your credentials correctly, you will be presented with a home page on ResearchGate, which has several tabs to be discussed. So you may have some suggestions from ResearchGate for you. So depending on your areas of interest, depending on your past activities, ResearchGate will try to suggest a few articles, or it may try to suggest a few projects that you may be interested in, and so on. So the best part is, if you no longer need them, you can hide those updates. Okay? And then you have another tab called the questions tab, which is an active place for you to ask questions and also answer already existing questions, so that your profile score goes up. And there also is a tab for searching jobs that match your profile. So once your profile is given to ResearchGate, it will suggest you a set of jobs that may suit your profile. You may then go ahead applying for them. So this portal not only allows you to collaborate with people of similar interests, it helps you gain knowledge in your domain. It helps you answer queries from peer researchers across the world, and you may also look out for new job opportunities if you wish for. And then you have a search bar here. This search box allows you to search for researchers, you may search for publications, you may search for presentations, and so on. And whatever is there in the ResearchGate's database will be retrieved as results and shown up to the user. Then we have a few more buttons here. Okay, so one is for seeing the updates. The other is to message others on ResearchGate. So message other ResearchGate users. So like how we could internally message using Facebook chat or a LinkedIn message feature. Similarly, you can send messages to other ResearchGate users from this particular portal itself. You don't have to actually email them separately using your other email account. And you have an option to see your requests. So you might have requested for a full text of an article, and you could see the status of your request here. And this is where you have your profile as a drop down that you could see. So this profile allows you to edit your profile and make it more strong. And it might allow you, it will also allow you to invite your co-authors if they are not already on ResearchGate, ResearchGate. And then there are a few settings that you could set using this place. There's a help center that you could write to for getting your queries answered about ResearchGate. And when you no longer need to use the portal, you can log out from here. Okay. Then as we publish our research, as we add new items to our research portfolio, we may want to upload them to ResearchGate as well. So there is this add new button here that you could use to add your published research. So your published research could be an article, it could be a book chapter, or it could be an entire book. It could be code that you want to share it with your peers. It could be a paper from a conference proceedings, or it could be the data that you have used that you want to share it with your peers, or it could be the method you want to tell about your patent, or it could be negative results, preprint. So there are a lot of output from research that you can publish. All of these can be uploaded to ResearchGate to strengthen your profile. A few of this might look new. So preprint is a version of a scholarly or a scientific paper that precedes formal peer review. So before you publish in any peer-reviewed scholarly or scientific journal, you may want to get healthy critics from your peers. So you could put up your preprint on ResearchGate and expect your peers to reply healthily so that you can build upon those healthy comments and try to make your publishing item better, right? And negative result might sound scary, but not at all. Your research might end up successfully in a positive result that matches with what you thought and what has been arrived at. Or it could be the other way around, wherein you have now found that a particular problem that you had chosen cannot be solved. So you have all the reasons to justify why it cannot be solved. Or it could be that the result is not showing any evidence of the intended effect. Or it could be that whatever hypothesis you had thought, the relation between the two measured phenomena, no longer are true. So it could be null hypothesis. So all these results you would call collectively as negative result. So that is again a popular research item that you should be publishing on ResearchGate, so that you would be helping your peers to understand what are all the pitfalls if a particular problem is chosen to be solved, and they would not really attempt to redo that and fail, right? So negative result publishing is also a very good way of letting know people what should not be done. Okay, so with all these introduction, let's quickly get to the portal and see how to use it. Ma'am, is the ResearchGate portal visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. So because I'm already there on ResearchGate, you might quickly see my details here. But as a new user, you would have to enter these details for the first time and only once, so that your browser will try to pick up from cookies your information the next time, right? So here, as a new user, so you just have to get to this place where you sign up. So when you sign up, it will just try to relate you to the other researchers who are already there on ResearchGate. So it will just ask you if you're an academic or a student or a corporate or a person with a medical background and so on. So you could just click one of those that suits you, and then you can get started. So like I told you, it will ask you for your institution and the department in that institution you work for the ResearchGate portal to automatically build up your network, right? So when you fill in these details, it will just ask for your email ID and then your username and a photo for your visual presence, and that should end the sign up process. It is as simple as this. So let's assume that we have created a user account and I would want to log in. So it's me, and I am using Aparna at msrt.edu, my institutional login for signing up as an user in ResearchGate. So I shall enter the password and then I would log in. So when I log in, like I told you, I will be presented with my home page that has few suggestions for me. So this tells that I could make my work more discoverable by having few things sorted. So I could put my projects, I could put my pending research publications so that I will become more presentable, right? So there are few more suggestions based on the work I have been doing. So I am into cloud security, so it gives me a publication related to that to see if this is of help to me. So all this is automatically done by ResearchGate for you to be easily using this interface. So if you want to recommend it for other users, you could click on recommend. If you want to follow this, you could click on follow. Similarly, if you want to share it with others, you could do it. So when I say share, it will give me few people that I would want to share, or you can type in the username here and you could just share with that person. So I have a few more. Then it also lists some updates from my colleagues who have been with me, and it tells me what new things they have uploaded to this portal. And then on the right hand side, like I told you, there is this network, my peer-to-peer network, that tells whom I should be following, because I have cited these authors in my papers. I would want to follow them and see what updates they publish on ResearchGate. So when I say follow, if there are any updates from these authors, I will get automatically notified. So I could have a set of people whom I have not yet been following. So ResearchGate suggests those authors and it asks if you want to follow. So by clicking on this follow, you would be following this author and any updates from him will be automatically received. And you could also see the others, or you could all view all related researchers. So it will try to list all those people who are of similar interests in terms of the domain, or it could be from the institutional background. So you could have a summary of authors who are there whom you want to get connected or want to follow them, or you can filter it down to only those users who belong to your institution, and then you could follow them, or it could be specifically to your department, follow them, or it could be your co-authors and you could just follow them. If your co-authors are not there on ResearchGate yet, you can invite them to join your network and they would receive an intimation and would want to get onto ResearchGate. So it could not be just the co-authors, it could be your colleagues who may want to explore ResearchGate. So you could be the starting point for them, help them, invite them, and then let them get started using ResearchGate. So that's how your network gets automatically populated. So this shows the statistics that is calculated for different features of usage of ResearchGate. So it could be the number of questions I pose, number of answers I give out, or it could be what publications I have published here. So based on the activities and how active I am, I will be getting stats about my research activities inside ResearchGate. Then it may also ask you to update your profile. You may not have added a few things that helps ResearchGate know you better. So you can just go about adding those things, missing things to your profile and make it stronger. So like I told you, something is suggested for you and you don't feel it's important, you can just click here and hide the update so that ResearchGate will try to remove this update from your feed. Then we have the questions tab. So I could get to this tab and ResearchGate, depending upon my areas of interest, tries to put in a set of questions that are not yet answered for me to be able to answer them. So it could be a general set of questions that I could answer, or it could be a set of questions that I am following. So any updates there could be instantly viewed from this place. And then it could be questions that I have asked. So you could just ask a question here and people of similar interest will definitely get back to you. And if you want to keep it anonymous, you can ask an anonymous question as well. So these are the different interfaces that you could use for querying others so that you could get a technical answer from experts and then clear your queries. And like I told you, we have this jobs interface also. Then that could give you better job suggestions. So it will list all those jobs you may be interested in, and you could view and further apply if you are interested. Okay. So like I told you, for automatically suggesting you relevant things on ResearchGate, you will have to keep your profile up to date. So this is the search tab I was telling you, wherein you can enter a set of keywords that could be names of researchers, or it could be some keywords related to publications, or it could be some presentation that you want to watch. So you could search for different things here by entering the keywords and pressing the search button. You have this place, like I told you, which are meant for getting the updates. So you can click on this and see what latest updates that matter to you has been shown up in ResearchGate. Or it could be, like I told you, you want to message someone and tell them something about your research or something that's interesting in researchgate.net. So you could just send a message. So you could enter a person's name, and my colleague Jay Lakshmi is there here. So I want to send her something technical. So I could type in a subject, enter the message. I could even attach a file and then send out a message. So the message reaches her, and when she is on ResearchGate, she will get to see those in her inbox. As of now, my inbox is empty. So that's how I could message people inside of ResearchGate, not leaving ResearchGate, and using another email platform. So this is a place where you could see all sorts of requests. So you could see what open requests are available, and you might have received for a request. I mean, you might have received for, you might have asked for something. So I had requested for this article because it's closed, it's not open. So I have asked for it. So you can request for articles that are not open, and you can see if you have received your request response. You can see it here, and you can send request responses to the people who have requested something from your end. So all these happen within the ResearchGate, so you don't really have to go out of it to do something great, right? So when I click on my profile, so I could go about editing my profile. There again, it's an easy to enter interface. So overview, what research, what experience, all these could be just added, and you will have your profile built. So I could invite my co-authors who are not at there on ResearchGate. Then I could change settings, and that's how I could make it look and feel different. And add new is the button that you would want to use to strengthen your profile here. So you may want to publish, or you may want to display, or tell your friends that you have published an article or you have published a book chapter, and give details about it. So when you click on it, you will know that you may have to add a file. Okay, so the proceedings where it is listed, that file, and you could make it public, which is accessible to everyone, or you could make it private, so that somebody could request by looking at that. Somebody could request, and you can then send the file on request. So you can do all these when you are uploading your publications to ResearchGate, and hence it's all secure. So it could be data in the form of tables, images that you want to share it with others so that they could pick up the data for their usage. Or it could be projects that you are currently working on that you want to tell others and maybe involve them and have a good interaction and collaboration. So this is how ResearchGate looks like, and these are the different features available on ResearchGate for you to get started and be active here. And so if the paper or the publication is open, you can view and download it directly from here. So are there any doubts at this point?
Participants, if you have any questions,
Aparna
you can
ma'am, there is a
unmute.
few questions on the chat box.
Yes,
We can have it at the end of the session, ma'am, so that it's easier for you to answer.
sure,
Right
ma'am,
now, we
sure.
have no particular questions pertain to the login or the interaction mode,
Okay.
but there are few questions. We can take it at the end of the session, ma'am.
Okay, so if I have to repeat some things here that were not clear, I shall repeat, or I shall get to the next part of my presentation.
You can go to the next part, ma'am. It's because these are only general questions where you can
Okay,
even answer later on, ma'am. Ma'am,
okay,
there
ma'am.
is one Nitya who's having a certain doubt in login.
Yes, ma'am.
Nitya, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Actually, I don't have my institutional mail ID.
Yeah,
So every time when I uh, just plan to register in ResearchGate, it's not possible because I do my research in Mother Teresa University, whereas
yeah.
I don't know, I don't have institutional mail ID. So
Okay,
is it
ma'am.
possible without? Yeah.
If you have your Gmail account, it is you could just use that email as well.
Yeah, but during the process, the next step it is not allowing me to register to get registered because it's asking my organizational ID.
Yeah, I mean,
I have
like I
tried it
told
many a
you,
times.
yeah, this is based out of all those details that it will automatically pick up. ResearchGate will automatically pick up to build your network and other details. But there should be
Uh-huh.
options for you to get started with your Gmail account as well. So if you cannot really do it, please mail it to me, ma'am. I will help you how to get started.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, we can continue, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So with that demo on ResearchGate, I would next want to talk about research on Google Scholar. Okay, so Google Scholar, we have been extensively, I think, using it, and that's the free academic search engine that Google provides you, and you can think of it as an academic version of Google, because we now have synonymously replaced the word in English search with Google. Most of us don't use the word search. We say go and Google it, right? So Google has become so popular for searching anything and everything online. So when it is academic related searches, we may want to restrict ourselves from using Google. And so Google, the key inventor behind Google Scholar, namely Anurag Acharya, thought about it, and he has released a scholarly version of Google, an academic version of Google called Google Scholar way back in 2004, and it has been very well received by research community from them. So like I told you, it's a free academic search engine that can help you provide a easy to use interface for searching scholarly literature. So from this one place, you can search for many things. You could search for articles, you could search for theses, books, court opinions, and you could search from different sources. It could be academic publishers, it could be professional societies, it could be online repositories, university domains, and other websites. So you could search from a variety of sources and try to get information about what you want to search. So Google Scholar helps you find relevant work across the world of all the scholarly research that's available. So why did Anurag think of having a scholarly website for Google was because when we give a search key in our Google, the regular Google website, it will try to search for all possible places that it has indexed and retrieve all those matches that match your keyword, right? So, but when you have to do some academic related searching, you may want to restrict your repository to be a set of publishers, a set of universities, and scholarly websites. For that reason, if you go and search for your articles through Google Scholar, you will actually create a smaller subset of the pool that Google searches. So everything will be done automatically, but still the result that you get, the time at which you get back the results is very, very small when compared to the regular Google you do, because Google tries to get it from all different places, whereas Scholar restricts itself to academic related places. So it's always good we do all academic related searches in Google Scholar rather than getting it from Google, right? A word of caution here, the search result does not get curated based on the subscription, because some academic databases like Scopus or Web of Science tries to display the result after curating them depending on the user subscription. Whereas here, Google is a easy to go guy who would just report the search results in a less curated way. So that should not be a reason why we should not be using Google Scholar anyways. So if you look at the prominent features of Google Scholar, so you can search for all scholarly literature from one place, and you could explore related works, citations, authors, publications, all these, and you could locate the complete document. So the library would be listed in your search result. So you could just get to the library to see if the document is open access and directly retrieve the document. So you could keep up with the recent developments of your peers in that area of research. So all of these are popular features that you would want to get to Google Scholar. So I'll just stop it here because most of us are very conversant in using this portal. I will quickly give you a demo of some interesting features that you may not know. Are you able to see the Google Scholar webpage?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for confirming. So here, scholar.google.com is the URL that you would want to type in and hit in your browser window for opening up the Google Scholar portal. And here you just need your Gmail or your Google credentials basically to log in. So if you don't have credentials set up on Google, you could just go and set up your user ID there. Whereas most of us have Gmail accounts, and that
Yoga Lakshmi. Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
yeah. So like I told you, we could just get started with our Google account, and if you have already your email open, then when I click on or when I type in scholar.google.com, it will automatically take that sign on and start recognizing me as Aparna from MSRIT. So it's that easy. If you have not had any other Google products logged into, you could just click on scholar.google.com and sign in with your Gmail account. So when you get to this place, you have a few things that you could check out for. So this particular drop down gives you an option to edit your profile. So you can go to my profile and try to set it up. Okay, so if you have not given any information, again, it's an easy to use form filling interface that asks for some details. What are the areas of interest? What are your publications and such details, so that it's easy for Scholar to set up your profile. So you could do that. And then uh, let me first get to Scholar and search for, say, keywords cloud security. Now the search will try to list all those based on the relevance. Okay, you're sorting by relevance here. So based on relevance of what you're trying to search, it will try to list all those publications or patents and all those, so that you could easily get started with. So here, say for example, now I have the first item listed, the cloud security issues. So you can look at the library where this is deposited. So the right hand side, it lists the library link. So you could just get to this link and see if you can download this paper. So this paper is open access, so you could just download it and use it. So if the papers are not open, then you may have to request, and your presence in Google Scholar as an academician or a researcher will help others to identify and recognize you as a researcher, and maybe wish to collaborate by sending you the required publications. Now, if you want to restrict based on time, if you want to restrict the results, search results, you could do that on the left hand side. So left hand side, if you want publications since 2020 only to be listed, you could have them here. And if it's like for last 2 years, you could do it here. Or you can specify a custom range starting from say 16 to 20, and you can search for the specific items, articles there. Okay, and then what is more important here as well is, so when you feel something is related and you want to look at it, you can add it to your library. So the star here tells that you can save this article to your library. So you get a message saying it's added to your library. So when we get back to the library, I shall show you that this gets added. So I will now have a quick link to my papers that I'm interested in, and I could just search and see them only when I visit my library. So this particular quotation marks tells you how to cite this document, this article. So we know that there are different formats of citations. So you, whichever format you want, you could just copy and paste it to your article. Then it will also indicate how many people have cited this specific article to know the popularity of this article. And you could also click on related articles that will show you other articles that are similar to the ones that you are seeing here, right? So these are the different parameters that a particular article has, and Google Scholar readily lists them in the search results. Now, if you don't want patents to be included, you can exclude. If you don't want citations, you can exclude. You can as well create an alert. So when you create an alert, in the title, whenever you see this keywords cloud security, and then you create an alert for it. So whenever there is a new item which has cloud security in the title uploaded to Google Scholar, you will immediately get an automatic alert to your email. You could then get back to Scholar and see what is the update. So it is this easy to get automatic update alerts. Okay. Now here it shows up to 10 results. If you want to change that, you could go up to 20 results and get updates about them. So when you get to the My Library part of the Google Scholar, so I have a few articles that I had listed are important and they matter to me for my research. So I would have stored them in an online library that's there in scholar.google.com. So the next time I don't have to really search for these again and again. I would just get to my library and try using them. I will just go through them and use them very easily. And when I say click on a particular article, I may want to edit some of the details about the article. So I could just go about and edit it and save it. I may want to delete it. I no longer feel it's relevant for my work, so I would just delete it. Or I may want to export it into different formats, so I could do that. I could even label these papers so that they get logically grouped into one set. For example, I see that this particular paper discusses about cloud security. So I have already created a label called cloud security. So I will just put this paper under cloud security. And then the next time I want to search, I could just search those papers that I have listed under cloud security label. So if you want to create new labels, you could create a new label. Here you just could mention what is your the keyword or the label name should indicate what you're trying to store there in that collection, so that the next time you have that label visited, you know what you're trying to do, right? So image maybe compression is one label I want to create. A very good logical way of organizing related papers in groups so that you can have just the group visited. So on the left hand side, you could see that just that group also is shown up. So you could just get to that place and view the articles that are matching the label that you have given, right? So that's about labels and how to organize your library. So along with these, like I told you, you can set up alerts, not specific to certain keywords. You can set up alerts for other things as well. Then you have advanced search feature in Google Scholar that gives you more sophisticated query formats. So you could have articles with all of these keywords that you would type in here, or you may want to find articles with the exact phrase that you want to search for, or it may be at least one of the words that you want to match and find the articles, or it may be the other way around. You don't want these words to be present, you want to negate. So you could use this particular text box and specify those words that shouldn't appear in your search result, right? And you could also restrict the search place inside the article. If it could be anywhere in the article, you could click on it. If you want it in the title, then you will have to click on it so that whatever you are trying to search, the keywords are matched only in the title of the article, and such articles which match will be retrieved. You can even search for articles authored by specific authors, published by different publishers, and if you want to have a custom range of period where you want to search for articles, you could do that. So advanced search has more sophistications for you to perform better search. So these are the key features. Then within the search, you could also have certain shortcuts that you could remember. You want to search by author, you could say author colon and say I want to search by an author named Nuth. So I would have, so that didn't match any articles. So you could just search by the author names by having author colon as the key to recognize that the search is based on author, or you could have the shortcut called all in title used to search for the keywords that match only in the title of the article and not anywhere in the article. So if you want to restrict your search to specific keywords, you can put those keywords in double quotes. When you enclose them within double quotes, it will only search for the articles that have an exact match with the keywords listed in the search bar. So this is how you could restrict your search, either using this advanced search option or having certain shortcuts typed in here to restrict your search in a more defined way. So these are the various features for you to know and get started using Google Scholar. There is an extension, if you're using Google Chrome as your web browser, there is an extension that is provided by Google Chrome. So you can just download that extension and add it to your Chrome browser. So if you see here, I have pinned it to my browser here. So I could just click on this Google Scholar button and type in, and then I could search and get the search results here. When you want to expand it, you could just open results in a new tab and it opens up inside Google Scholar. So if you want to make it quick and crisp, you can go about installing this extension. You just have to visit the Google website for extension. So when I say Google Scholar extension, I would get to the Chrome's official website wherein I can find this extension. Here you would add to Chrome because I have already added. It is now asking me whether I should remove it from Chrome. So it is this easy. You can just get to the web store of Chrome and search for this extension and add it to your Chrome website, where Chrome web pages, so that next time you can do your search quickly from here. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's pretty much how you could quickly understand about Google Scholar's usage and use it efficiently. Then we have a third tool that I would want to discuss in this platform today, which is the online reference manager tool called Mendeley. So this is a very easy to use tool. Looks cryptic in the initial days of getting acquainted with this tool, but once you have a hands-on on this tool, it's really a very easy and a cakewalk for you to organize your references. So Mendeley is an online research workflow tool. It's also an academic social network because all those features that I told you with respect to ResearchGate or Google Scholar are still here there. So you can still collaborate with people. You can create private groups and discuss projects and publications with people whom you trust. So there are a lot of other networking features that are available along with reference management. So it will allow you to organize your documents and references. It will also help you collaborate with your fellow researchers, again online, and they could be anywhere. So you could set up an online virtual group and work with your peers in your group easily. And the that you store here are securely stored, so you can cite them or you can share them and then allow them to be used by other researchers. And Mendeley also provides you with your readership statistics that shows how active you are on Mendeley portal, and that will help you stay up to date and learn more about the different advancements in your area of research. So Mendeley is one software that's available in 3 versions. So you can have a desktop version, okay? So you can have a web version, or you can even have Mendeley being used from your tablet or a mobile. So there are different versions supported by the Mendeley community. So you could use it in different platforms. So you can have your own PC that is installed with Linux or Apple MacBook, or it could be a workstation with Windows installed. So you can have the Mendeley desktop version installed on it, so that you will have all your references and documents stored inside a library on your hard disk. And then you can as well have a web version, wherein this web library will help you access your references and documents online from wherever you are. So you don't have to really sit in front of your workstation and try to manage your references. So you can have this Mendeley web used, and it's just like ResearchGate kind of a web interface that users could use to get to their libraries, their documents and references easily and access them. The third version, like, so you could have it installed as an app, and you can have all your libraries seen from your mobile as well, wherever you go. So Mendeley has innovatively thought of different platforms so that it allows users to use the software very effectively from wherever they are. And like I told you, it's a cross-platform software. So it works on Windows, Mac, Linux. It could be a mobile. It works seamlessly on all the platforms. And any browser you use to get to the web version of Mendeley, it's there. So it's browser compatible. So it's this easy for us to get to Mendeley software. Here as well, the first step would be to create an account. So you would have to visit mendeley.com and create an account. It's easy, free to do, and takes just a few seconds. And then once you have an account set up, you can use the same account on different versions of the software. So you might use the same user credentials on web or on the mobile or on your desktop. So all the 3 versions would need a single account to be operated with. So once you have created your account, you will then be prompted to download the appropriate version of your Mendeley desktop on your main working computer. So you can just download it, install it, and then have the entire documents and references organized in a well-defined way. So once we have done this, once we have set up all this, then we can have all that Mendeley offers to be used in a very easily accessible way. So again, I don't want to keep talking about it. Let's get to the place and see how to use it. So okay, so this is the official website of Mendeley, the mendeley.com. you can just get to this place by typing the URL, and then you can create an account if you are new to Mendeley, and then the next time onwards you can just sign in using those credentials. So this is one-time job. Like I told you, it's a very easy process, giving your name, username, mail ID, and a password. So because I have set up my Mendeley account some time back, so I shall just directly sign into that. So again, I have used my institutional mail ID here, and so when I log in with my credentials correctly, so I will be landing into a home page of Mendeley wherein I get all news feeds displayed. Okay. So on the other hand, let me also show you how Mendeley desktop looks like. So I just have to install it. Like I told you, you can go and search for desktop installation, or once you sign in, okay, once you sign up for the first time, it will automatically take you to the installation of the Mendeley desktop. So once you have installed it, okay, so Mendeley desktop looks something like this. There are 3 panes in the display window. So the left hand side pane has options for getting to your documents in a list those documents that were recently added to your library, or you can list only those that you had recently read. You have some favorites, you can put them here. And if you need a review of some article, you can place it here. What were your publications, you can keep it here. And you can even create new folders and organize your documents so that related documents go into the respective folders. So this is how you can manage the documents that exist in the Mendeley Reference Manager. If you want to add a new file or a document to your library, you can use this place. So you have option for adding files, or if you feel the entire folder on your hard disk has to be added to the Mendeley desktop, you could do that. Or you could watch a folder. So will get
Aparna ma'am, we are losing the audio. Aparna ma'am. Dear participants, please wait. I think there is a technical issue with the speaker. I think she will join us shortly. Kalanidhi ma'am. Kalanidhi ma'am. Mahendran sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just log out for a minute and I'll call Aparna ma'am. Just make sure that things are going on fine here.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Participants, we will join shortly because I think there is a technical issue on the speaker's end. Please bear a few minutes. Participants, the resource person will be joining us in just 1 or 2 minutes. She's reconnecting.
Ma'am, am I
Ma'am
audible
has
now?
joined.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for the
No, no
interruption.
problem, ma'am. No problem. It happens.
Okay, so I was just telling you how Mendeley desktop looks like. So uh, let me just present it. So here is where I'll have all my references and documents that I have stored get listed. And when I have to search based on specific criteria, either recently added or recently read, I could list only those. Okay. And then like I told you, we could import from other reference managers that we have already been using into Mendeley and export very easily. So you just have to get the references in .bib format and upload it to BibTeX Manager, or it's .xml format for EndNote to pick up all that you have stored inside Mendeley. And that's how you could just import and export documents from different reference managers into Mendeley or out of Mendeley. So here in the center pane of your display window, you have the list of documents here. Now, if you see a PDF icon next to the document, it means it's open access. So you can just click on a specific document to get to the details of the document. So right hand side pane, the third one that you can see here, gives you the details about that particular document. So you can see what are the author keywords listed, when was it accessed, who was the publisher. All of these information, if it's available in the document, will get automatically added to the details of this document. You can even make notes about this particular document and try to store it in Mendeley, so that the next time you visit this document, you know what you have understood from this document. So when you click on it, okay, if it's open access, it will directly open up inside your Mendeley interface itself. You don't have to really have a PDF, Adobe Reader or whatever software you use to access PDF. It will directly open up inside of your Mendeley, and you can read from here itself. And you can even highlight certain keywords that you want to show that it's important. You can create a note to your document that you want to create and so on. So this PDF reader inside Mendeley is also a very useful feature that you can readily use for reading the PDF documents. So now here you can invite your colleagues to Mendeley if they are not there, and then you can have a group set up maybe amongst your colleagues or amongst your other peers, so that you can work collectively in a group. You can share and organize documents group wise and have it all done very easily. And you can also have a web importer extension from Chrome for Mendeley. So you could just install it from here. And then you can also have a plugin that would easily pick up citations from Mendeley and add it to your article when you are trying to edit your article using MS Word. This is also compatible with LibreOffice on Linux. So you could just install that plugin so that in Word you can automatically cite your citations. You don't have to manually type them. So this is one of the best features I appreciate Mendeley for, and it really eases out the job of researcher when he is technically trying to write something about his work. Once I have some documents, I could even drag and drop to my library, and that simply works. For example, here I could have a document here. So I just pick it up from here and drop it to Mendeley, and it will just add that new document to Mendeley. So you could alternatively add documents from this place. So adding files or folders, or you could manually add documents here. So that's about the Mendeley desktop. Most of it is here. And you have a help guide here that will help you answer a lot of queries about Mendeley desktop. Now, when you get to the web version, okay, so I have just logged in. I showed you how I did that. So I visited Mendeley.com website and I logged in, and I will be presented with a lot of news feed. So I could just see all of them, and if I feel that that particular feed is important, I can add to my library, and it just gets added to my library. So this is the tab that gets you to the web library, and this looks very similar to your desktop library. So there's a left pane that lists the different types of documents, and the center pane that lists all the documents that match the criteria you have you have clicked on the left hand side. And when you click on a specific document, you can see its details on the right hand side. So you could have even other documents. Like I told you, I just in the feed, I just saw something that's important. So economic analysis of blockchain technology on digital platform market. This wasn't there earlier in my library. When I added, now it's there as part of my library. I can just go about viewing it. Okay. And then Mendeley also gives you some suggestions based on your key areas of interest and your previous browsing history. So you could then go through these and see if they are feasible for your research and you want to know more about it. You can go about adding them to your library. Here again, like Google Scholar, depending on the similarity index, there are other articles that are shown up when you click on show similar articles to the one that is listed here. And then you can form groups. Like I told you, you can create a new group. There are public groups that you can join and collaborate with them depending on what they are working on. or you can create a new group, make it public or make it private, and then add colleagues or your teammates to that, and then have your collaboration restricted to that group. So any documents, references you share will be only to that group, and interaction gets stronger and easier. So there is an option for uh, uploading the data sets as well. So you could do that. I think that takes some time. So that will give you a place for uploading your data set. So you could create a data set. Uh, okay, and you can even search for other research data that's already there, and then you will get the data set. So you can already have a data set, or you want to find a new data set, you could do it from Mendeley very easily. Then Mendeley also helps its users building up careers. So you can visit this tab to see what career opportunities you have depending on your profile. You can get job alerts, you can upload your CV, and you can have all of these features in Mendeley being used. Then you have your profile wherein you can have other settings and privacy setup, and you could log out from here when you don't need it. So this is how you have Mendeley web interface that looks very similar to your desktop interface. So you could use your desktop when you're seated in a place and you are doing your research, or if you are floating across, moving around, you could still talk to your peers, discuss with them with your library coming with you on a web interface, right? Mobile interface looks very similar. Download the app and you could have the app syncing all the details of your Mendeley web, and you could use your app with ease. Now, when you get back to your desktop.
Otherwise, please mute your audio, please. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when you get back to your Mendeley desktop, you might have added some references by viewing them online, the suggestions that you got, or you have searched for it. You can get it stored in your Mendeley web. Now, when you want to offload it or download it to your Mendeley desktop, you can click on the sync button, and this sync button will try to sync the details that you have on your web, the cloud interface, and your Mendeley desktop. So I added a few things that were there in my web interface. So when I sync up,
Ma'am, is there any limit for the PDF?
Hello?
Ma'am, is there any limit for the PDF to upload?
Not really, sir. The cloud and the desktop have their own memory limitations. So you could have those many PDFs stored, accommodating the storage you have. So you could sync up with what you searched on web and added them online, and have them downloaded to your desktop, and have them here. Now I quickly want also to show how I could get the citations automatically inserted into my document. So let me get to the Microsoft Word. So in the references, you are composing your article, and somewhere you want to now refer a particular citation. So in the references, you could just get to insert citation. Now, to be able to get Mendeley attached to your Word, I told you there is a plugin that you have to install. So when you get to Mendeley desktop and you look into the tools, there is this Microsoft Word plugin. So you just have to install it once, and every time you use Microsoft Word for editing your articles, in the references section, you will have the Mendeley's presence already there. So you can just insert a citation here. So you can search for author, title, or year from your Mendeley desktop library. So say, for example, I have searched a particular article here. I say I want this. I just say OK. And it will try to get the details from my Mendeley reference manager and put it up here. So while I type in other contents of my article, so say, for example, authors are trying to explain whatever and cite the reference instantly, you could just do it automatically using the insert citation feature of Mendeley. And then at the end, when you want to create your bibliography, you could just automatically get them in place by clicking on insert bibliography. So it will just create the bibliography for all the citations you have made in this article automatically. And if you want to change the style of your citation, there is an option here. So you could just check whatever option you want, and accordingly Mendeley will create the bibliography for you. So this is one very interesting feature that you should be trying for managing references. So when you try to compose an article, I know citations and creating bibliography is one of the toughest points. So if you can make use of Mendeley in a clear way, it is easy for us to actually manage these references automatically. So actually Mendeley has a lot of other features that you could use. I just gave you a quick hands-on on the popular features so that you find it interesting to actually get started. So with those three tools and the demos about how to get started, I would want to conclude it here by saying social interaction actually improves our learning by enhancing knowledge and our critical thinking and problem solving skills. And social interactions actually shape up individual and collective personalities. Interactions often affect boldness. So shyer individuals actually can socialize and get bolder. And biology says collective phenomena like social interactions make individuals produce emergent behaviors. So learning is a very constructive process. ResearchGate, Mendeley, Google Scholar are all very safe and non-threatening interactive learning communities in which researchers feel very comfortable participating and develop confidence in what they learn and contribute. So these were a few references that I made use of for getting this PPT in place. And I would want to end it here. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, there are a few questions. Shall I read out the questions, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, Dr. Noorjahan ma'am has asked, which one is better, desktop library or web library interface of Mendeley?
Ma'am, like I told you, desktop version is housed in one place. So you will have to get to that computer whenever you want to do any article editing or whenever you want to read through your references. So you should be in that computer because it's installed on that particular system, and you could manage your document editing or referencing from there. But when it's web, you could just hit mendeley.com URL using a browser, log in with your same credentials as that you have used for your Mendeley desktop, and access your library online. So when you are mobile and when you want to access your Mendeley library, you could go online. So those are different ways in which you can access your Mendeley. So the whole point is to keep it available anytime, anywhere.
Okay, ma'am. And one person has asked, MS Word 2016 is not supporting. We can't import the reference in Word 16 version. Does it have any specific version of MS Word to use?
Not really. I am using MS Word 16 and I could easily install. So whenever we try installing from the official websites, the website will do a background check of what the platform you are trying to install and then suggest you that respective software that would fit on your platform. So Word 16 is what I'm using and I still cite using Mendeley from there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. One Mr. Manikandan has asked, what do you mean by, what is the difference between I index and H index?
With respect to?
Ma'am, actually, he just asked this.
Can I take up this question if I don't mind?
Please, ma'am.
Ma'am, can I? Aparna, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
So I think it's a male who has asked us, sir. Actually, these H index, this I index, G index, all that we are talking about, it's all assessment metrics that is used to gauge our research quality. H index is just normally called as search index. It actually tells you how many paper publication made by that particular individual. If I have published a paper, say around 10, 20 papers, that will tell you about the H index. Whereas when I talk about I index, it will tell more on my publications, not as an individual, but will talk more on my publication, that is I index. Actually, a higher version of H index is the G index. Actually, G index will talk about your entire articles that comes with your name in terms of your publication. So actually H index, the higher version is the G index, but between H index and I index only difference is one, H index will talk about your individual publications and I index will talk about your citations as such. Am I clear?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Thank
I
you,
have
ma'am.
one doubt, ma'am. Kadarvel here.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
please.
Ma'am, does Madly provide plagiarism?
No, sir. The plagiarism option is not there. It's all about
Okay.
managing documents and references. And like I told you, there are other social networking features that you could use with Mendeley.
While converting those search paper into Word PDF, there will be a limit. There's no limit, you as you said.
Converting, as in, no, the
While
number of
uploading.
documents you store, there is no limit actually. So it the space on your system is the limitation.
Okay. There are. Ma'am, what is the difference between this Google Scholar and this one which you Madly? Not much difference.
So Google Scholar, like I told you, is basically an academic search engine. All of these have similar features, but each one of them is popular for their exclusive feature. Like searching is popular when you call it Google search, and when it's reference management, it's very easy when you use reference managers like Mendeley. They all look similar when we talk about the features, but some of them are best with respect to some of their exclusive features.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think Jayalakshmi ma'am has answered all the questions. One ma'am has asked, when you publish in Elsevier, you have to open ABN account in Mendeley.
Yeah, as of now, Science Direct and Scopus have got directly associated with Mendeley. So anything you publish there shows up here automatically. But other databases, yeah, you would have to integrate them with Mendeley and search for it and then add them. So that particular domain is a different library that you have to log in and then try to import. As of now, Scopus and Science Direct is what is supported by Mendeley. It's automatically integrated.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. I think all the questions have been answered by Jayalakshmi ma'am, and I think that's all. All the questions have been answered, ma'am. Over to
Thank
Dean
you.
Research, ma'am.
Thank you, Jayalakshmi.
Kalanidhi, ma'am.
Yes, Jayanti.
Yes,
Thank you, Ms. Aparna, for your
inspiring, interesting, and informative session. We could learn many good things from you today. And
Thank you.
every day is a new day for us. And we have been learning a lot from each and every resource person coming up to us. Thank you very much for that. Now,
Thank you.
I now request the Dean Research to kindly give her concluding remarks as well as a word of thanks for this program. Madam, please.
Ma'am, am I audible? That's the first
Yes.
thing I would like to know.
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. Uh, a very good evening to everyone. Before I formally give a vote of thanks, I would definitely say that today's thing, 1.5 hour session or 1 hour 40-minute session was absolutely wonderful. We didn't see the time going. I was really enjoying the entire session. But I would definitely say that Aparna ma'am, you're one of the most professional people I have encountered. She's a woman of very few words and a woman of great deeds. That is what I have finally come to understand when I contacted Aparna ma'am for this particular session, which I have been trying to conduct in I think 2 months before, but due to some other commitments, it's kept on pushing. I think this entire session was waiting up for Aparna ma'am to come and conduct it. That is why this session has gone to 2 months later. But it has been a wonderful session, Aparna madam. We really enjoyed. Because one
Thank
thing,
you.
when I interacted with Aparna ma'am, she told me, tell me your audience. I told this is going to be from the PG students to the MPhil scholars and the beginning of the PhD scholars or just into research and also researchers from all age groups. So just make it very basic also and make it very sure that everybody else understands. She just interacted to me in very, very few words. And I was really very skeptical that, ma'am, why she didn't ask me many questions or why she didn't actually interact much. But I'm so happy to say that with the few words, she was able to really catch up so much. And she has done, I think all the participants will agree that she has done absolute justice to the entire forum of research and to all the online platforms available. Of course, I agree that there are many platforms that are available, but I have mentioned to madam to just make a highlight on only the 3 different platforms as ResearchGate, Google Scholar, and Mendeley, which I think ma'am has taken and she has justified the entire thing. Thank you, Aparna ma'am, so much for having accepted the invitation and having been there. And thank you, Dr. Vanati ma'am, for suggesting Aparna ma'am. And but for her, I think today's session, nobody else could have handled it better than Aparna madam, because we wanted somebody from a research background also and from a technology background also, who can interact both in a research sort of way and a technology sort of way to reach out to the audience. And I think she has done perfect justice to it. Thank you again, Aparna ma'am and Vanati ma'am, for this wonderful session. So let me go to the formal vote of thanks. Good evening once again to everyone. Dear participants, I deem it an honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks for this research development program organized by the Guru Nanak Center for Research for the cause of promotion and development of research. I, as a convener, wish to sincerely thank our management, especially our most revered General Secretary and Correspondent, Sardar Manjit Singh Nair, our respected Principal, Dr. M.G. Raghunathan, for the constant support, guidance for planning and execution of research activities. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the resource person of today's research development program, Mrs. Aparna, from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Ramaya Institute of Technology, Bangalore, for having accepted our invitation and sparing a valuable time and enormous knowledge and experience with us. She has given an overall view of all the different portals available for research interaction and research promotion. It is our duty to take this information in our research and apply it to get the visibility for our research at a global level. We are indeed grateful to you, ma'am, for having accepted to share your expertise in this research development program. Thanks to Dr. LRS Kalanidhi, Vice Principal Student Affairs, for her support, Dean Academies Dr. Savitri, Deans of various school heads and faculty members of various departments for the participation and support. My congratulations to the organizing secretary of this research development program, Dr. Vanati, head Department of IIT, Guru Nanak College, who has meticulously organized this program. Thanks to the research scholars of the Guru Nanak Center for Research for having participated in the program. Thanks to all the participants all over the country who have joined us today for this research development program. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah. So on behalf of Guru Nanak Center for Research and on my own behalf, I heartily thank our resource person and all present. And I thank the host of today's program, Dr. Mahendra Kumar, Assistant Professor of Biotechnology. Thank you very much, sir, for conducting this program successfully.
Want to know more about these topics? Please follow us at Guru Nanak Center for Research YouTube page, Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you.